In this context, happy would refer to Shizuka and her feelings of happiness, of positive emotion. But that grotesqueness becomes the signified. It becomes this amalgamation of negativity, this cesspool of just awfulness. And in fact, you could even think of Takopi's camera as that signified, that grotesqueness of the word happy. These emotional words, this emotional language fails to capture that depth of Shizuka's suffering. Takopi's happy. Okay, so before I start today's video, just a couple of housekeeping things. First, I think YouTube has changed their algorithm again because my views are like way down. I'm talking 5 to 10 times less than normal, which is very weird. So if you're enjoying what's going on here, as always, give a like, drop a sub, comment. I love reading all your comments across both the anime channel here and the gaming channel over there. We are super close to 1,000 at this point. It's literally going to be probably by the end of the year. But I have some really exciting stuff planned for 1,000, and I'm actually teasing some things actively on both the gaming and anime channel, and over on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. Follow me there, same handle as always, Larry Johns, and I hope to see you guys there. Likewise, I've also partnered with Nectar.ai to bring you real-time AI companions in, well, real time. You can toggle between genders, you can toggle between SFW, sit for work, and NSFW. There are tons and tons of filters. When I say there's something here for everyone, I mean it. There is literally so many filters. You can choose between robots, philosophy, politics if you're feeling up for having a political conversation, not really my thing, or even VTubers. They've recently even raised $3.9 million to make these chatbot companions better than ever and anything else out there that you can even find. So if you want something beyond the typical ChatGPT kind of monotone emoji-written conversations, or maybe even Microsoft Copilot if you use Copilot on your Windows desktop, give Nectar.ai a try. I promise these are really cool models, and they really do break that kind of immersive reality between human and, well, AI. I genuinely cannot wait to see how they make Nectar even better and continue to improve upon what it already does well. If it's something you're interested in, check the link in my description down below and give Nectar a try. I understand AI is not for everyone, and that's totally fine. You don't have to listen to this part of the video at all, I promise. I'm not forcing this on anyone, but if you're curious, check it out. Also, I'm aware of the community feature. I'm not sure if it's working how it's intended to right now. I have to do some experimenting with that, but I'll let you guys know when I've kind of got all that figured out, and you guys can post on there besides just me. Okay, so with all of that out of the way, let's talk Takopi, because my god, what an anime this was. It was only 6 episodes. Technically 7, I guess, because the first episode was like 35-ish minutes or so. But my god, this was an incredible anime. I wish it would have done more with what it tried to do and what it did do, but god, I'll tell you, if you haven't seen it, it is not for the faint of heart. It really is a gut punch story. It's wrapped in deceptively cute visuals, very cartoonish-like. Kind of like what you would see if your child drew you a picture on the fridge door. It's dark, it's gritty, it's emotional, and at times, it's almost unhinged in a way. It deals with things like childhood trauma and abuse, moral ambiguity and unintended consequences, the limits of empathy and intervention, time loops, and even psychological deterioration. So for those who haven't seen this anime, and for the one person who did comment asking for a general summary of the anime, imagine that you're this little cute pink octopus from the planet Happy, and you come to Earth and your entire job is to make people happy. And you meet this little 9-year-old girl, and she just looks so distraught, and you don't know what's going on. You don't understand human emotion. And your entire job, you've got all these little happy tools. Using those happy tools, you're supposed to make this person happy. Well, the thing you don't know about her is that she's being bullied by this one other little girl and her friends who think she's just the absolute spawn of the devil. For a little background here, Shizuka is the one that's being bullied, and Marina is the one that's doing the bullying. And no matter what way someone or anyone ever tries to spin bullying in any sense is not okay. Ever. I don't care what it is. Personally, I'm probably one of the biggest advocates for ending bullying in all forms that you're ever gonna meet. As someone who went through that through a lot of public school, it's not something anybody should ever have to go through. And that's part of the reason why I'm making this video, is because, well, first of all, this is an important topic. And second of all, coming from someone who did experience being bullied, well, it sucks. And what this anime tried to do was great. but what it didn't do sucked. And we'll get to that, but Takopi's original sin. This is a very rich anime. It's layered with symbolism, psychological nuance, a lot of deep-seated repressed feelings, and a lot of, well, original sin. And who that original sin really belongs to or started with, wherever that seed started, doesn't matter. The fact that any of the stuff that happened in the anime actually happened to begin with is what the issue is. You have literal little children bullying each other, making death threats, saying these just really awful, hateful things, just completely out of spite for no reason at all, other than the fact that it's a learned behavior from the home, and a lack of parenting. And the lack of parenting, I think, honestly, is one of the biggest issues in this anime, because how in the world are you going to let your child just bully another, and in fact, in one episode, potentially even stab the eye of another child out with a mechanical pencil? And then when you introduce Azuma, the little boy, he's just completely head over heels for Shizuka. We don't understand why until the very last episode, and I kind of understand that. It seemed a little sudden, but I do understand. He will do anything for her, and that includes lying to the police. Obviously, lying to the police in any sense, whatever age you are, should not be something anybody does. And this just becomes another part, another branch to that original sin, that seed that gets planted. It roots in, and it just digs in. It doesn't go anywhere. It just gets bigger and bigger, and it grows like a weed until it festers, and then all of a sudden you have a weed infestation, and you can't get rid of it. But if you've been around the channel lately, especially if you've watched my Kokoro Connect video, you would understand that some of the things I'm going to be talking about here, and honestly, I want to start with a psychoanalytical approach. Let's look at Takopi itself, the little octopus. What does Takopi embody? Well, we can look at Takopi as the superego, kind of a naive moral compass. He just wants everybody to be happy, no matter what it takes, but he lacks that understanding of human complexity, like I said. He doesn't understand human emotion, conversation, the complexity of the human mind. His interventions mirror the superego's idealistic drive, which often kind of clashes with the id-like impulses. The id isn't something that really develops until you hit childhood. It grows and it develops through childhood. It doesn't form immediately. It's something that comes together as the years go on and you grow older and you mature. The id is that primal instinct, that urge, that desire, that you want something. That is your id. Your id is telling you, I want this, I want this. But the ego and the superego are what keeps that id in check. And while it's understandable that Takopi just doesn't understand human complexity, especially without having that psychological insight, how dangerous that can be, but it's because he doesn't understand that complexity that everything just spirals out of control, especially in the last episode. So in a way, Takopi is both part of the problem and part of the solution. But if we look at Shizuka, she's just completely disassociated most of the time, and this stems from a lot of childhood trauma. Her mother's never around, her father, well, we really don't see her father until episode 6, and come to find out, her father completely disassociates, even being related to her, having founded a new wife and now has new kids and this tiny little dog. Her father is now living the perfect life. He's in the city, he has a nice apartment. He's got a wife he loves now, he's got kids, and his kids have a nice little dog that they can play with. Another problem with this anime, not necessarily the anime's fault, but another problem that is presented within the anime is that Shizuka wants to go see her father in Tokyo, and, well, she believes that's where Chappie, her dog, is, and Chappie was part of the victimization that occurs earlier in the anime from this point. Obviously, animal abuse as a way to get back at somebody you don't like is very wrong. That should never happen. And we really don't know what happens to Chappie. After episode 3 and 4, Chappie's just kind of gone. This is kind of one of the things that I have a problem with in this anime, because I'm not really sure that showing animal abuse, especially towards this little girl's dog, her only friend in the entire world at this point, I'm not entirely sure showing that was necessary. I understand that it kind of exemplifies the bullying and how bad it was, but that could have been presented in another way, especially in the end of episode 1 where Shizuka literally takes a rope and, well, you know what happens after that. I don't have to explain ropes and bullying and what that eventually leads to for some people. Through about the first half of the anime, the first 3 episodes or so, Shizuka and Takopi kind of get this do-over. Takopi, one of his little happy tools is a camera that he can use to take a picture of that moment in time and rewind time to that point. This happens a few times, but unfortunately with Marina's death in the first 3 episodes, it becomes this tool of destruction, this tool of misunderstanding and this misalignment. While Takopi was with Shizuka, his entire goal was to make Shizuka happy in whatever way he could. And seeing Marina bully Shizuka at that moment in time there in the forest, he inadvertently used the camera to hit Marina with. And of course, he's a little octopus, he doesn't understand what this does. When Marina stops moving and Takopi is completely uncertain about what to do, Azuma's there. Azuma's supposed to be the brains of the operation. He's the one that says, we need to do this, this, and this to prevent X and Y from happening. Well, again, like I said earlier, he falls head over heels for Shizuka, who just completely wraps him around her little finger, and he does anything she says. So now you have literal children in front of a dead body, and they don't know what to do with it. They're literally just children. They don't necessarily understand the permanence of the concept of death. Of course, they know what it is, they know how it happens and why it happens, but they don't understand the consequences that come from it. Eventually, these consequences come to a head and they boil over like a pot of hot water, and we begin to learn these little facets of Marina's life, which, come to find out, she was treated really poorly at home by her mother. Her mother is just completely insane, thinks that everything her daughter is doing is because she's doing it against her will, and that she's just this awful daughter. So now you have this destabilization of identity. Marina doesn't know who she is, she doesn't know what her mother wants from her. She tries to be this perfect role model, but everything she does, she just can't do right. And she has this scar on her face that we don't see until episode 6. And it becomes a symbol of the tumultuous path in life that she ends up beginning to live. She doesn't understand why her mother is upset at her. She's 9 years old. Obviously, a child would think the world of their parents because that's who they are. They're adults. That's who, as children, you aspire to be an adult. And what a joke adulting turned out to be, huh? Am I right? Come on. So what ends up happening? Well, if you put 2 and 2 together, this poor behavior, this mismanagement in the home, this abusive family relationship, this gets passed on to Shizuka because Marina believes that Shizuka's mother is the reason for her mother acting all crazy and just completely way out there in left field. Her father's never around because, well, her father is sleeping with Shizuka's mother. So now Marina believes that it's because of Shizuka that all of these terrible things are happening to her mother. Her family life is deteriorating. She now has this nasty scar on her cheek that, well, she can't get rid of. It blemishes that ideal femininity, that idea of perfect beauty. It is not something she has to live with for the rest of her life. She can't get rid of it. So Marina, in a way, becomes the victim, and this victimization leads her to victimize other people, namely Shizuka, and Shizuka becomes the victim. She becomes the primary victim of the anime, but we don't really understand why until episode 6, and then it's discovered that Takopi's original mission was to make Marina happy. But Marina has been completely destabilized. She is now the victim of this terrible at-home situation, this mother that she can't make happy, and now everything's just completely falling apart around her. But it doesn't stop there, because another piece to this victimization, this victimhood, is also Azuma. He has to live his life being the literal perfect child. His big brother makes perfect grades, he's the talk of the town, he is literally top in the country in his grade, and his mother expects Azuma to be that prodigy, that next perfect son that she has. And she blames his lack of perfection on Azuma himself, saying that, well, I raised you the same way I raised your brother, I fed you the same, I raised you the same. Not only is his mother blame shifting here, she's blaming her problems on her son, and her son's inability to be perfect, because why should anyone have to strive for perfection when perfection is not something that we can idealize? Unfortunately, this kind of wraps him into this little spat between Shizuka and Marina, and he ends up liking Shizuka first. She's completely put together in episode 6 when we see her in the past, but when Shizuka returns from, I don't remember where it was, he immediately just completely drops Marina and says, well, I actually like Shizuka, now that this girl is back, I kind of want to get to know her a little bit better again. And he begins to blame himself later in the episode, saying that I can never stick to one thing, I can never see anything through. And he feels this sense of incompleteness, this sense of imperfection, because his mother has taught him, well, I have to be perfect. 97 on the exam in class is not perfect. I didn't get 100. And this one time that I bombed the test because I was completely absorbed in the Marina and Shizuka conflict, Mom said that I could suddenly have these pancakes, and I've really wanted these pancakes forever. And she begins to blame me for not doing my best. Instead of talking to me about these things and saying, hey, I know there was a death in your class recently, how are you doing? It looks like something is bothering you, we should talk about it. I'm your mother, let's talk about this and figure out what's wrong. But she doesn't do that. She completely disregards Azuma and instead just praises her other son, or her eldest. But it's her eldest son, Azuma's brother, that kind of breaks this barrier. He says, you know what? I want you to tell me everything. I'll listen to you. If Mom won't listen to you, then tell me everything. I'm your big brother. You can talk to me. And perhaps the most wholesome part of this whole exchange here between Azuma, his brother, and his mother is that with his final paycheck, he ends up buying Azuma this new pair of glasses because his ones that he's currently wearing, he's growing out of the lenses. He does all of this to sacrifice his time, his money, everything for his younger brother because he loves him and he cares about him. And that's what a family should be. That should be a family dynamic. Everybody comes together and everyone is happy with each other. Nobody is snapping at each other's throats. Nobody's blame shifting. Everybody is being supportive as a family should be. And when his mother just gets completely overwhelmed from the events of the Shizuka-Marina conflict, when she finds out what's happened, she falls ill due to overwork and overstress. His brother ends up having to either quit his job or he gets fired. I don't remember which one it was, but he uses the last of his money from his paycheck to help his little brother out because he cares about him. So the last couple things I want to talk about here is Takopi and again Shizuka, but let's start with Takopi. First of all, Takopi's identity as a helper gets kind of deconstructed as he becomes complicit in violence. He doesn't understand death. He doesn't understand what it means to quote-unquote kill someone. He doesn't understand any of that because, again, he doesn't understand the complexity of the human mind. He doesn't understand human actions, sentiment, feelings, and emotions. This breaks that binary of good and evil, of being a helper. Now suddenly he's not a helper. He is a catalyst for destruction, for violence and chaos. And it's totally ironic. Takopi becomes the exact opposite of what he was meant to be in the first place. Think about how every time they go back in the past when he takes a picture, those days, those moments, they become fragmented like shattered glass. Things just don't seem to get better even if he goes back in the past and he tries a different measure, such as impersonating Shizuka to go talk to Marina, or giving Shizuka the right answers to the math questions in the middle of class when she is called upon by the teacher. This only just seems to stir things more and make it worse for Shizuka. But because she becomes complicit in violence, her role as a victim, an aggressor, redeemer, challenges binary moral categories. Now she's no longer any of these things, she's a little bit of each of them. But she's become this conglomeration of all this negativity. Now she doesn't really have an identity, at least not until the very end of the anime. Think about how Takopi's cheerful vocabulary, things like happy, becomes kind of grotesque in nature and context. There's this dissonance between the signifier and the signified. They are what the sign represents or refers to, and the observable aspects of the sign itself, respectively. So in this context, happy would refer to Shizuka and her feelings of happiness, of positive emotion. But that grotesqueness becomes the signified. It becomes this amalgamation of negativity, this cesspool of just awfulness. And in fact, you could even think of Takopi's camera as that signified, that grotesqueness of the word happy. These emotional words, this emotional language fails to capture that depth of Shizuka's suffering. Takopi's happy, and it just highlights the limits of communication. Words can only do so much when somebody is suffering, when somebody is really, really hurt. And we see that in this instance with Shizuka and Takopi, especially when she's trying to bash Takopi with this piece of asphalt. There has been this breakdown in communication that neither can understand because neither really understands each other's emotions. Takopi doesn't understand human emotion, but Shizuka does. And when Takopi begins to display these human-like emotions, she's confused because now she doesn't understand her own feelings, much less does she understand the feelings of some alien creature from the planet named Happy. So to really wrap things up nicely here, the thing I liked about Takopi was that it actually put bullying into a limelight, a spotlight for once. This anime was on everybody's feeds, everybody knew about it, everybody was talking about it. It highlighted the challenges of emotional insecurity in children and especially bullying, but it also brings to life things like the home life and the lack of an adult presence in a child's life. A strong adult presence. But what I would have liked to see more of was more of that mending relationship between Shizuka and Marina in the final episode. This mending of the relationship kind of happened out of nowhere. We don't really understand why the relationship is the way it is until the final, I'd say, 10 minutes of the episode. I especially dislike the fact that Shizuka's father completely wrote her out of his life and instead decided to have a new life with new kids, and it was like he was afraid of admitting that Shizuka was his daughter. One of the other things that really bothered me about this anime was the fact that nobody really stepped in to help Shizuka. Yeah, there was Azuma, but Azuma was also this 9-year-old little boy who didn't really understand what he was supposed to be doing and what his role was. He's dealing with his own emotional disruptions in the home and his own lack of an adult presence in his life, and he doesn't really necessarily need to be involved in the whole Shizuka-Marina conflict, but he is because he has this failure to see things through to the end, because he likes both girls one way or the other. He's just as confused as Shizuka and Marina are, but in his own different, unique ways. One of the other things I didn't like about this anime was the fact that it was only 6 episodes. It was short, and it kind of cut out a lot of stuff that I think could have been in there. I haven't read the manga, I don't know what the source material is like and how deep and dark that actually gets, or how long it is. But what I can commend it for is the fact that it actually tried to do something about bullying. It brought this into the spotlight and said, hey, look at me, we need to talk about this. This shouldn't be something that we just sweep under the rug because it is dark and gritty. But that's precisely it. It is dark and gritty. Bullying is something that needs to be addressed and should be something that really shouldn't even exist. Personally, for me, I would have liked to see an anime with something that was a little bit more deeper, a little bit more maybe psychological in nature with an older character or older characters. But at the same time, bullying is something that happens on all grade levels. It doesn't just happen in one grade level or the other. It doesn't happen in just elementary school or middle school or junior high or high school. It happens everywhere, even college. So I can commend it for trying to start the conversation. It is definitely something that needs to happen, and I think using media, especially fictional media, as a way to realize these sufferings, these pains, these just awful grotesque things that happen when it comes to bullying, sometimes even taking one's own life. I commend Takopi's original sin for actually starting the conversation. It doesn't matter who the sin started with, it doesn't matter how deep the seed dug its roots or where it started, where it began. The fact of the matter is that it did happen, it did start, it did dig in, it did get worse. And nobody stepped in to stop it. No adults, nobody responsible enough. This original sin was not rectified until this little alien octopus came from a planet called Happy and tried to actually make a difference in these 2 girls' lives. But with that, I'm going to close things out here. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. I know some of you actually listen to these videos in the background, so that's cool. Hey, I'll take the watch time, thank you very much. But this was an important conversation that I think needed to happen, and I think it still does need to happen. I don't really know if Takopi is going to continue this little cycle of putting out media like this that kind of breaks those boundaries and says, hey, let's talk about these things. But I kind of hope it starts something. But if you or someone you know need someone to talk to, please look at your screen right now and call one of these phone numbers on the screen or give these phone numbers to somebody that you know needs them. Bullying is a serious thing. It's an epidemic. Let's call it what it is. It's a pandemic. It's a problem. It affects everybody worldwide in one way or the other. So if you or someone you know needs help, please do not hesitate to reach out to any of these numbers on the screen right now. But again, thank you guys for watching so much. This was a very important video, and I think maybe one of the most important ones on this channel to date. So if you enjoyed, well, you know the drill. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all again very soon.